Rev up them refining computers as we're diving into some of the biggest theories, questions, and predictions coming out of the superb Severance Season 2 finale, and what could potentially be in store for the highly anticipated Season 3. Where am I? Is Season 3 out already? Can I get a waffle? Guess not, as Outie JBuck's fingers hurt from typing this little breakdown. Well, you know what? My back hurts from carrying this channel. There's so many things that happened in Severance Season 2, so I just want to dive right into some of the spicy predictions, theories, and questions. If Irving comes back for a Season 3, which truly I could see this as a beautiful send-off of the character, never to see him again. My guess, though, is that his storyline will be showing the outside world outside of Kier and Lumon's reach. It'll be an interesting angle showing how people like the door guy back in episode 2 actually feel towards Lumon and the cult of Kier. It's all poppycock, a crazy religious view, showing maybe how a majority of people actually don't use or consume Lumon goods, with a few people being like fringe Kier religious nuts, with the other townsfolk being like, yeah, just ignore that guy. I'll admit, the opposite way could also happen, and every town nearby is obsessed with Lumon, but I personally think the former is actually more interesting. Who the heck was Irving talking to on the phone? This was a mysterious storyline from Season 2 that never fully came into the light. Who are these shadowy people Irving is calling and potentially working for? The initial guess could be that it's the Whole Mind Collective. I mean, maybe, but I think that it's more serious, a more put-together group, potentially a Lumon competitor, who sent Irving in undercover. There's clearly a military past, something with Irving's father, and the Charlie Day-esque conspiracy document, so why is he doing all of this research? How does he know about the dark testing elevator? With this idea of Season 3 expanding the world outward, I think this also will bring in new characters, factions, and agendums. Speaking of factions, I think Irving is reintegrating, potentially with the help of Rabe. There are too many clues not to include this, like Rabe mentioning to Mark that she's gotten better with the procedure since the last time they met. So is Irving this mysterious testing subject? I mean, Irving did remember the dark testing elevator paintings when he was down on the severed floor, resulting in him sketching the elevator. Was the initial elevator look given to him actually on the outside? We know that there were moments where Irving napped and almost his subconscious memories flowed together, a weird workaround for the severance chips, reinforced by Milchick, being upset that Irving kept dozing off in Season 1. But further clues point to Irving knowing more than his napping sessions. The mention of his innie getting the message while on the phone, later at the train station, this conversation implies Irving has in fact remembered his love for Bert, something reintegration would definitely allow.
I'm truly sorry. I'm just not ready.
I want to have it. Irving. I'm ready.
While the biggest clue is Irving starving during the Ortbo in episode 4. Later, we learn that munchies are somehow a side effect of reintegration via Rabe, and Irving is insatiable.
We're starving, Mr. Milchick.
Give this man a sandwich. My guess being Rabe was the one behind this, and truly she could be the mysterious person on the phone. You know what would be great with these waffles? Some like orange juice, maybe bacon. A bacon cheeseburger. Luckily, I can order these things with Uber Eats, today's sponsor. Outie JBuck is the worst at picking weekly lunches down here, so instead, I'll treat myself. Uber Eats makes it so easy delivering comfort food without me having to leave the severed floor. I guess I can't really leave either way, but can you say melon party? Today, Uber Eats is offering first-time users $15 off your first order of $20 or more by using code JBuck15. I just ordered a mango. I don't even know what that is. Again, use code JBuck15 to get $15 off your first order of $20 or more. Thank you, Uber Eats, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now let's get back to the severed floor. Thank me for that. Now, I think Miss Wong is going to be like an avenue into Lumon's inner workings, and how they prepare young Wintertide Fellow honorees for servitude at Lumon. Remember, the last we saw of this child was her leaving her parents' home, shipping off to the Gunnel Egan Empathy Center located in Svalbard, an absolute desolate frozen tundra in Norway. This ain't no fun spring break adventure. I believe this is going to show the horrible training atmosphere young Lumon employees have to fight through to become essentially the Miss Cobel of their classes. Imagine physical and psychological torture and an emphasis on creating Kier in all of them. It's any cult-like education system eliminating childish folly and creating the emotionless Kier soldiers Lumon desires. This in turn will not only progress Miss Wong's story character development, but also in a roundabout way develop Miss Cobel's past, as we can infer that she was definitely put through the same torture that Miss Wong is destined for. Jame Egan is a weirdo. I mean, this guy ain't just playing video games in this little cuck room, as it's pretty clear he's out there swiping on all sorts of women with the quote about James's girls and him siring others.
She's one of James. No one's to know.
I sired others in the shadows.
Now this is big, showing that Helena seems to be the chosen one who gets to live and be an Egan, while there are countless others out there that, quote, rightful heir to the Kier dynasty. Anyway, I'm curious how much Season 3 will explore this, thinking this actually will tie to Jame Egan's Wintertide Fellowship honorees and or maybe all of the women attending these Lumon-run boarding schools. Jame is probably looking for those who possess the 9 Lumon core principles and somehow has devoted their entire life to Kier, and then ends up breeding with them, both trying to sire the next true Egan heir, and in a roundabout way create a superior race of multiple children of Kier out in the world. If this does go down, again, it adds to Cobel's history and character development, having her been assaulted by Jame and potentially becoming pregnant. If this is the case, Miss Cobel could be the mother to either Helly or Mark. I'll admit that this leans heavily into the Star Wars realm, with me leaning closer to it being Mark than Helly. Cobel throughout this entire series has had this unique relationship with Mark's innie and outie. We could chalk it up as her having, a more vested interest in Mark, Gemma, and the Severance chip in general, because we learn that she was the one who created, developed the chip, and wants to know the limits of Severance. For example, all of the Mark and Miss Casey wellness checks. However, she could also be vested because this is a child she never had, having to parent or live vicariously through the outside looking in, with Mark essentially being an Egan. I know things may get messy with Mark and Devon growing up together, assuming that one or both were adopted. Why else would Cobel end up being Devon's lactation consultant than to get closer to someone who she was torn from at a very young age? Part of me thinks that Mark has always been destined to work at Lumon and be part of Kier's story. Sure, this is piggybacking a little bit off of Mark being Cobel and James' illegitimate offspring, but something about how they held Mark to a higher esteem never really sat right with me. Yes, he was refining Gemma's tempers, giving them exactly what they wanted with the Severance chip, but what if this is all a way things are supposed to be playing out? I can't get over the fact that potentially some of the Lumon paintings are actually prophecies that have not happened yet, rather than having already happened. For example, the macro data refinement calamity could be alluding to the ending with Dylan and C&M standing up against Milchick. Kier pardons his betrayers, having Kier dressed as a Union officer from the American Civil War, hints at them being in a civil war against the innies and outies. Truly, for this, I am hoping for a Lord of the Flies, almost barbaric approach to the severed floor, as all of the innies slowly develop autonomy. Imagine one person doing hostage negotiations with themselves. The courtship of Kier and Imogen is actually Mark and Helly falling in love in the spirit of industry. And lastly, the youthful convalescence of Kier has someone looking oddly similar to Mark Scout praying at the bed of Kier, devoting his life to Kier's teachings. All of these paintings are actually events to come rather than have already happened. Or rather, it could be playing into the idea of cycles revolving, love always finds love, and someone like Mark is always destined to find a path back to Kier. The idea of cycles or life repeating could be reflected in Mark and Helly's relationship, mirroring that of the story of Kier and Imogen. Both workers in an ether mill theoretically forgetting about their outside lives when at work, similar to workers on the severed floor, both falling in love in the spirit of industry. Both Mark and or Helly could be Kier's offspring, and in a weird way, they together would be birthing the new Kier into this world, essentially Kier's resurrection. The ongoing baby and fertility illusions from these first 2 seasons point towards this, and would absolutely be on brand with Kier's return because, say Mark and Helly are both Egan offspring. Like I mentioned earlier, this would fit into the mold of Kier's parents, with the compliance handbook stating, "My skin was prone to ample bruising as a remnant of the consumption and of the close biological relationship betwixt my mother and father." Theoretically, Kier's parents were closely related, something that has historically been a practice in various religions. Furthermore, in some instances, the susceptibility of psychotic disorders and or mood disorders can be brought on by this, hinting at the Kier and Dieter story, implying Dieter was just a personality of Kier's and he killed that personality. Leaning on everything I just mentioned, I do think that Mark and Helly will be expecting a child. Helly/Helena is pregnant, which is going to cause one of the most interesting episodes of Maury I've ever watched.
You are the father!
Mark went downtown Pound Town with both Helly and Helena, theoretically without protection, and with the overwhelming hints at fertility in children, even this little dude in the Season 2 intro, I believe this pregnancy is inevitable. However, from a story point of view, I have no idea how you play this off without it being somewhat gimmicky. Let me know in the comments if you think this whole pregnancy thing is on the table and how the heck did they even pull this off? Jame Egan popping up on the severed floor and acknowledging he sees Kier and Helly when she has malicious intent shows me Jame, like many others, are leaning on the Lumon core principle of wiles, defined as devious or cunning stratagems or persuading someone to do what one wants. Meaning this old guy has something up his sleeve, and that thing is somehow using Helly's spirit of Kier and manipulating her into continuing the Egan Lumon CEO trend, while using Mark as almost a carrot of motivation. I'm not entirely sure on the specifics of how this would even work. Maybe Mark and Helly refined one another's MDR numbers, and then Gemma-like doors are installed that they both get to live at the Egan compound, or, something in between those two. There's gotta be a plan B, something else Lumon is cooking up, because they knew that the innies would latch on to, any family that they have. A weakness in the eyes of Kier. Speaking of refining, who the heck were the other 3 MDR employees refining if Mark was solely working on Gemma? Every day, these 4 came into work, hit some keys, and sorted some numbers, but who did these tempers actually belong to? Well, my best guess is other potentially kidnapped test subjects. There's a lot of pretty grim evidence that points towards this. Firstly, there is a door opposite of Gemma's, meaning someone at some point had to have lived in that other room. There's clearly more doors or file names than the 25 that were assigned to Gemma, so these also had to belong to some other person. During the sacrificial goat ceremony, Lorne asks,
How many more must I get?
Implying that this is happening a lot, meaning several tens, maybe hundreds of test floor subjects meet the same fate Gemma was destined for. Tying back to Season 1 when Dylan mentions to Helly that typically only 1 in 5 files is completed before they expire. Expire meaning whoever these file names belong to are 100%.
D-E-D. Dead.
Lastly, what about the massive cemetery next to the Lumon housing? Kier is a testing town, which explains why it's on the quieter side, because Lumon is sacrificing hundreds of people in the name of religious science or a scientific ritual. I don't know, man, but MDR were refining randos, and it wasn't until Mark's freshman fluke that Lumon learned an emotional, loving bond allowed the MDR employee to refine harder, better, faster, stronger.
This is a quick sad one, but I think Season 3 will actually show us more of Milchick's personal life outside of work. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be drab and depressing, similar to like Irving.
Milchick has been the company man persona throughout this series. Only in the latter half of Season 2 did he see his allegiances kind of fracture and him question some of Lumon's methods. As a result of his devotion to his career, he had to make sacrifices and is incredibly lonely. I could see him coming home from work, the fridge is bare, the living room is bare, very few friends or family members to actually connect with, having missed many memorable moments in people's lives solely because of his duties at Lumon. One of the overarching themes of Severance has been the idea of work-life balance, and what a beautifully haunting way to portray this than a beloved character seemingly full of joy at work, having absolutely nothing to show for his hard work. His work is his life.
As someone who has unfortunately prioritized work over other aspects of life, seeing this on screen is going to be like a mirror held in front of me, and it's going to be devastating.
This has been one of the most commented comments after the Season 2 finale because, yeah, the ending is jarring, seems out of character for Helly, and remember, Mark couldn't differentiate between Helly or Helena on the severed floor. So what a wild twist it would be that Helena tricked any Mark right at the end to stay on the severed floor away from Gemma.
It would be Nito Crispito, don't get me wrong. However, it's been debunked.
Actress Britt Lower, in an interview with the Los Angeles Times, said that's Helly R in the final episode. So yes, it's fun to theorize, but can be thrown.
Who was the severed floor man of mystery in the hallway?
Remember back to Season 2, Episode 1, Mark rushes into wellness, and there's some stranger danger just creeping in the background. So who the heck is this dude? According to the credits, it's an actor who also portrayed Mark's shadow character during the Ortbo episode, but that's just the body double. Like, in-universe, who the heck is this dude? I initially thought it might be Jame Egan, since we know that he's creeping about during episodes 9 and 10, tying in with Milchick's Grashupan undercover story. However, this build and movement looks more akin to a younger person. I don't know how this is even possible, but I'm curious if this is somehow Mark. I mean, this would take a drastic turn into the science fiction realm, but I'm curious if time will ever come into play as a bigger aspect. Like, time on the severed floor is manipulated in some capacity. Clearly, there have been dozens of scenes emphasizing clocks, watches, and the time. Heck, even Ben Stiller teased viewers to focus on what is in Mark's locker drawer. This could completely be a troll on his part, but would be a wild twist on the somewhat grounded nature of Severance to introduce a weird time element.
I'm saying it's Mark, but how is the mystery?
Milchick has a fun Tonight Show back and forth with the Kier animatronic in episode 10, which eventually goes off script, berating Seth for his verbose vocabulary.
How is this thing going off script? Is this not weird to anyone else?
I'm saying that this is actually Kier Egan's consciousness or part of it. Ever since season 1, one of the mysteries has been who the heck is the board? And since day 1, I've been convinced that the previous CEOs go through the mysterious revolving, which entails uploading their consciousness via a computer so they can theoretically live forever. Back in my Season 2 Episode 4 breakdown, I brought up this idea of the Montauk chair. It's a whole long Montauk Project conspiracy item. Go and look it up if you're curious. Anyway, this chair was theorized to just be this, upload everything, and then they could communicate and view things through different objects. For example, the board's speaker box, and potentially viewing everything through Natalie's eyes, almost like, Disney Pixar's Inside Out. Anyway, yeah, I'm saying Kier's consciousness, along with the others, are in digital form, and Kier, Raz, and Milchick was our biggest evidence. Actor Mark Geller, who is the stand-in model for Kier Egan, also voiced Kier in this scene, so that just lends even more evidence that if and when Kier Egan actually shows up in person, his voice will match the actor's voice and image. very thin evidence on this one, but these two characters never physically meet in the series, yet are very aware of one another. I'm betting that they met or were potentially friends when Cobel attended the Myrtle Egan School for Girls. It would be an interesting angle to learn that both of them actually worked on the Severance chip schematics and had a close bond, potentially romantically, but rather Cobel was all for giving the plans and credit to Lumon and Jame, while Rabe was very much against it, knowing the dangers of the Severance chip. This is why Rabe is very much in the know and is able to at least have a base knowledge of the chip and how to deactivate it. Season 1 revealed the power of the OTC Severance chip function, while Season 2 introduced the Glasgow block. But what the heck are these other functions that pop up on screen when Dylan is cycling through the commands? Beehive seems like a hive mind situation. Everyone with a chip has a common goal. Branch transfer seems self-explanatory, like all of the newer employees at the start of Season 2 being transferred in from Branch 5X. Clean slate feels very nefarious, like they can completely wipe someone and start over, which would be wild. Elephant probably brings back any and all memories, maybe an actual reintegration function, because elephants are known for their incredible memories. On the other hand, goldfish have very short memories, so like a 51st date situation.
What happened? Did I get shot in the brain? Hi, I'm Tom.
Freeze frame could literally stop the severed person in their tracks, while lullaby seems like it could be a similar kind of situation. Maybe this is what was actually used on the MDR team to get them to the Ortbo if that actually took place outside. An open house feels like multiple people could pop into a chip. Maybe this is how the board is actually able to communicate through Natalie. We last see Gemma in the Lumon stairwell, so like, what is next? I think it would be goofy for her to instantly be snatched up and thrown back into Lumon's grasps, so I really think it's going to be a role reversal with Gemma teaming up with Devin and Cobel, trying to now get Mark out of Lumon. Unfortunately, Mark's innie is calling the shots, so all of this is going to be a convoluted mess. Initially, I thought that it would be the three of them going to the press, but it seems like everyone is in Lumon's pocket, and with the Lexington letter implying stories about Lumon just don't get published. Clearly, Gemma's chip will be the hot ticket item for Lumon, so it may evolve into like a darker corporate espionage thriller in Season 3.
I could see Cobel potentially using Gemma for her own personal gain, but right now everyone's motivations are very cloudy.
Devin and Gemma seem to be the two that will lead this saving Mark operation, but how is really the question? I'm curious about the public outrage if Gemma's rescue actually makes, global news or at least local news.
I don't believe this one at all, but the amount of times that it has been commented here on YouTube, along with my TikTok and Instagram, is staggering.
With several people saying Rickon and his friends are somehow goats turned to people. Again, I am not drinking the Kool-Aid on this one, but cited evidence has been Rickon's facial hair kind of looks like that of a goat. He was able to scale a rock face with ease like a mountain goat tends to do. Rickon's friends seem oddly oblivious to simple concepts like World War I wouldn't have initially been called that because no one would have known that there was going to be another world war that happened. And lastly, Rebecca apparently has weird sores on the back of her head, scars from the severance procedure potentially, with Devin later adding that Rebecca chews weird. And anyone that chews weird has gotta be a goat.
And that is all of my Severance Season 3 questions, theories, and potential predictions. I cannot wait for Season 3. I'm curious what you think is going to go down, happen in Season 3, so feel free to drop all of your thoughts, feelings, theories, anything in the comments below.
I'm sure Dan Erickson has some weirdness cooking up, and I'm really anticipating seeing more of the world in Severance. I cannot wait for Season 3. This has been one of my favorite shows in a while. Again, comment your favorite theories and predictions on what may be happening in Season 3, and then stay tuned as I'm going to have a big Season 2 Easter egg and reference video dropping next week.
Thank you as always for watching, and praise Kier.